So, George Galloway recently did a video or an interview with another person trying to ask the question, why have like the Western media and all these other countries fallen in line behind like Ukraine and America and NATO against Russia? Now, of course, the answer is pretty simple. Russia has basically invaded Ukraine based on, well, lies. We've seen the lie, of course, that Ukraine was about to have this massive military operation against the Donbass, that their forces are full of Nazis and they're trying to denazify, of course, the country. We've seen, the chemical weapons. So many wrong things that have no basis in reality that we've seen people like George Galloway parroting, and I put him really at the top of the pedestal. And I know there are other people again who would say, "Oh no, I think so and so is worse," and there is certainly a degree to say, yeah, probably so and so is just as bad, if not worse, as George Galloway. In fact, very recently there was a guy who you may have seen very recently doing the rounds, a video of Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to appeal to the Russian people, saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. Don't be fooled by what Putin is telling you. This is reality, what's going on." And another Russian YouTuber did a response, and I'm almost half tempted to do a response to that response, because again, he is parroting those exact same wrong, false, fanciful talking points that the Terminator is talking about. So always be vigilant about this type of stuff. But once again, we're going to go through some of the this article in the Byline Times, which gets it across fantastically. Russia is losing on all fronts. It's lost the PR war, it's lost the information war, and it seems that the war on the ground in Ukraine is turning into a stalemate. And even a stalemate for Ukraine is a win, because Russia cannot sustain this amount of economic damage or even the losses, which we think are potentially in the tens of thousands. They cannot hide, they cannot disguise that. So how long they can keep up this big lie is anyone's guess. But remember, of course, back in World War One, the German public were kept in the dark so much that the news of course, the loss of World War One came to them as such a shock, because they were assured to them by their own news and press outlets that they were winning, that they had won this war, they got it in the bag, and yet all of a sudden they woke the announcement, we've lost. So maybe the Russian people might have that similar reaction if they lose, if obviously Putin loses control of the media narrative. So, of course, let's go diving into this article. But before we do that, please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from the Yorkshire Bylines with the title of "Russia Cannot Win. Running out of generals on the battlefield and credibility everywhere." Now into its second month of the barbarous attack on the people of Ukraine, her infrastructure and cultural heritage, and Russia herself is beginning to try and count the cost of Vladimir Putin's war, with official casualties on the Russian side remaining at over at least 1,351. Again, figures from the Russian military defense. I highly suspect they are a lot higher than that. It is clear that the actual numbers are again significantly higher. Russian governments have a long history of manipulating statistics for political purposes, and of course, be they of course election results, COVID fatalities, or even military losses. Sadly, it will be some time before the true scale of the casualties actually filter through to the population at large. Ukrainians claim that Russians losses are more than 17,000, and between the 24th and 30th of March, while NATO is at least estimating anything between 8,000 to 15,000 dead. Of course, relatively few bodies have so far been repatriated, despite the efforts of the Ukrainian authorities to inform relatives by ringing the numbers on the mobile phones of the dead using facial recognition technology to try and match the bodies in cold storage, meat lorries, and even profiles on social media platforms. And again, according to the Ukrainian side, the Russians are reluctant to actually retrieve their dead, particularly those incinerated in the tanks. And of course, local newspapers in Russia have occasionally covered the funerals of individual Russian soldiers, but these seem to no longer be considered newsworthy, possibly out of fear of persecution for pushing false information about the activities of Russian forces in the quote special operation and incurring up to 15 years of imprisonment. By contrast, the deaths and funerals of some of those generals killed in the action have been reported, and Putin's war has seen the demise of an embarrassingly high number of senior officials. 6 of the 20 generals sent into Ukraine and a deputy commander of the Black Sea Fleet, as well as a senior commander from the self-styled Donetsk People Republic. Several of those senior officials were highly experienced veterans of earlier Russian campaigns in Syria, Chechnya, and of course the annexation of Crimea. And something is clearly wrong with the Russian war machine. If the Russians are again not fully aware of the extent of their military losses, or again they are better informed, of course, of the disappearance of people from various areas of public life, of these, probably the most famous is Marinia Ovduskelska, a well-known popular news journalist on Vladimir, a main news TV program on Channel 1, who staged an anti-war protest behind the newsreader on the 14th of March in the manner of Steve Bray, the anti-Brexit activist. For this, Olyaga has luckily only been fined a mere 30,000 rubles, but now she has no job and she and her family now share a very uncertain future. Veteran NTV reporter Vladimir Putin has also resigned, as has Marian Volvert, and at the same time an activist for a punk rock group Pussy Riot, who perhaps also surprisingly was laterally employed by the governmental TV station RT. Anatoly Shibis, Russia's climate envoy, has now thrown in the towel and left the country after being made very clear his opposition to war on social media. And one senior economist of the day, one-time deputy minister of the Kremlin chief of staff under Boris Yeltsin in the 1990s, was named the world's best finance minister by the UK magazine Euromoney back in 1997. Putin has lost the backing of that figure of such international standing, just shows how far the dictator has moved away from the economic and social liberalism of the 1990s, which then offered Russia and the world so much hope. In the world of arts, Olga Smirnov, I think that's how you say, has quit the Bolshevik to join the Dutch National Ballet, leaving, having obviously denounced the war. While Boris Gelbskis, the founding father of Russian rock, pardon me, and the lead singer of Aquarium, has been banned from the airwaves for calling the invasion madness on Instagram. The Russian media group has also blacklisted popular Ukrainian singer Ivan Don for his anti-war views, as well as the Russian rapper, I don't know how you say that, Augustin, who is now organizing charity concerts abroad to raise money for Ukrainian refugees. And of course, Alexander Melskin, the creator of Russia's oldest and still performing rock group, Marshal Vilny, has also met a very similar fate for its support of True Russia, for a charity founded back in March 2020 by the internationally acclaimed writer Boris Akuin and the dancer and choreographer Mikhail Barfushkos and Sergei Golfly, a former chief economist at the European Bank and Reconstruction Development. And again, according to this website, the charity stands for the immediate end in the war in Ukraine, and again supports the public, cultural, and scientific incentives of the Russian-speaking community around the world to help the Ukrainian refugees. And even some former Putin loyalists now seem to be backtracking. Opera star Akyuna Novkins has released a statement via her lawyer on the 30th of March, where the soprano said this: "I expressly condemn the war in Ukraine, and my thoughts are with the victims of this war and their families. My position is clear. I am not a member of any political party, nor am I allied with any leader of Russia. I acknowledge and regret the past actions or statements of mine could have been misinterpreted." So while internationally, of course, renowned figures are now generally getting off lightly with criticizing Putin and his policies, at least over 15,000 ordinary members of the public have actually dared to stage individual or collective protests against the war, have been beaten by the police, arrested, fined, or imprisoned. Student and academics who have signed anti-war petitions have been excluded from their institutions or dismissed, while school teachers failing to give the pro-Kremlin propaganda lesson explaining the special operation as the Kremlin sees it now find themselves out of work. But it is in the shopping malls and the entertainment centers that Russia is now seeing the most consequences of the war. Inflation is now running at 15.66%. Sanctions have now resulted in higher food prices, shortage of medicines, contraceptives, and many products from global brands that have long been regarded as standard fare by most of the population. McDonald's opened its first Russian branch some 32 years ago. It heralded the start of the Western-style consumerism in Russia, and of course the normalization of standards and expectations in all branches of the consumer goods and entertainment. And over the past month, the company has left Russia, reducing customer choice or just eliminating it altogether. Though Russian industry will be able to replace some of it with alternatives in time, it will be clear to all that just as in the days before Gorbachev's Perestroika, Russians cannot have what the rest of the world simply took for granted. This is only resulting in considerable resentment throughout society, especially from the younger generations, who experienced a consumer society has been continuously improved since the 1980s. Those under 40, of course, only have sketchy memories or absolutely no recall of the shortages or ubiquitous poor quality goods, and deprived of seeing Russian teams competing in international sport, and of course, without Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of which the state has labeled extremist. And indeed, facing injury and death on a mass dubious crusade against fellow Slavs, it is surely the young who will first take to the streets en masse in a revolt against Putin's neo-Stalinist regime. Although there is already intelligence of reports of low morale, malicious acts of sabotage in the ranks of the Russian forces in Ukraine, and again, according to the GCHQ chief, Sir Jeremy Fleming, in a speech on March 30th in Canberra, with most of the world entirely now backing Ukraine, Russia cannot win this war. It is only a matter of time before the regime's barbarity and lies cause enough of the civilian population to come to their senses and echo in defiance of Roman Harbour, the Ukrainian soldier and border guard on the Snake Island, who early in the war courteously told the Russian warship to go fuck itself. And I completely agree. I think there's so much of this stuff, and this war is crazy. We've seen, as was said there, 6 Russian generals and 1 Black Sea Fleet admiral gone. Deaths of like generals in Russia in modern military warfare is really, really unheard of, because the generals are normally like miles back, behind the front line these days because of obviously communication equipment. But even we have seen from that the Russians with their communication equipment are communicating on openly unencrypted channels, and we've seen the efforts of the I think it's the Ukrainian Ham Radio Association broadcasting on their lines and telling them to go home. And now we've also seen Putin sign up more conscripts, at least over 130,000 more conscripts he's now asked for, saying, oh yeah, they're not going to Ukraine, but ultimately I think that's where they'll probably be headed after all. As we saw in the early days of this, many of the soldiers themselves didn't even know they were being told to go to Ukraine. This is just sheer absolute insanity on this side. And everyone's trying to work out just what went wrong. And I think maybe in the years to come, I think you will probably get defectors come out and say, okay, this is exactly what went on behind the scenes. This is what went wrong. This is why this happened here. I think that is entirely possible and plausible to potentially see that. Maybe not now, but maybe in 3 to 4, 5 years time, possibly. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.